Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today's episode is episode 8 of season 8, Mummy on the Orient Express. In outer space, the Orient Express regally travels between the stars. Mysterious deeds are happening. Passengers are seeing visions that inevitably lead to death. The Doctor must solve this mystery, or all is lost. This episode is written by Jamie Matheson, directed by Paul Wilmhurst. It originally aired on the 11th of October 2014 and was watched by 5.8 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, this is Kelsey.
Hi, this is Brian.
Hey, this is Josh.
Hi, everyone. This is Frank.
In a high-end train carriage, an elderly woman named Mrs. Pitt sees a mummy who is invisible to the other passengers. 66 seconds later, she has died. In the back of the train, the Doctor and Clara arrive for Clara's final trip in the Tardis. Her relationship with the Doctor has become too complicated, and she needs to stop traveling with him. They learn of the death of Mrs. Pitt and the vision of the mummy that preceded it. Even though this is their last chance to say goodbye, they cannot resist a mystery. The Doctor meets Perkins, the engineer who has his own suspicions on what's going on. Clara has gone with Maisie, Mrs. Pitt's granddaughter, to see her grandmother's body. Maisie is feeling guilty because she imagined her grandmother's death for years. Soon, they are stuck in a room with a sarcophagus. In the dining car, the Doctor is having a discussion with Professor Morehouse about the foretold myth, a legend about a mummy that kills exactly 66 seconds after its victim first sees it, and how there is a riddle or secret word that can stop it, but no one has ever discovered what that is.
Fun episode, yeah?
Yeah, I remember this was originally when I watched this season and wasn't pleased with it. This was the first episode where I started to like it. And I was like, oh, maybe this will be better than I thought. And then it continued to be good. The whole thing about the old-fashioned train, I mean, they have a good explanation for it in space. It's a fun juxtaposition, but sometimes I feel when things get a little too cartoony in that way, it takes me out of it. In hindsight, when the Doctor and Clara show up, he's explaining to her where they are and what's going on. I feel like that's when we should have seen what's going on. When he says a train in space, and then we cut to outside instead of at the end of the cold open, because it made me feel. I guess I'll start calling it the bubble wrap effect, where it's just it's like an alien who they just use bubble wrap to make it look alien, and it just sort of took me out of it a little bit. Like, do I like that? Is it too silly? Is it too... I mean, once you understand what's happening, then it's okay. So if seeing it for the first time is like this close screen time to the explanation, then you don't really have time to be like, I don't know if I like that.
Well, that's funny you call it a cartoony thing, because it reminded me of Galaxy Express 999, that anime, like in the vein of like Captain Harlock. There's a train going through space. I was like, oh, somebody must have loved that anime.
Yeah, maybe.
I did like it the way they did it, because it had that twist where first you thought you were back then, and then as a fan who knows the past and the reference to that, it's like the Orient Express, they're actually doing it. They're actually going there, because it was referenced before in the Big Bang. Right. After the wedding, the Doctor gets a call to go to the Orient Express in space.
Right.
The 11th Doctor, Matt Smith.
Yes.
I love the production design. It looks so good.
Oh, it looked very good.
This time watching it after, Galaxy's Edge and the hotel, the Star Wars hotel open, like I definitely bought it a lot more watching it this time. In my head, I'm like, oh, it's like this resort that these rich people have, probably paid tickets to go on and play in the 1920s. At least at that point in the episode, like I think I could buy that internally.
And it really reminded me of Voyage of the Dam, how they recreated the Titanic.
Yes. Yeah. I also like the Doctor's formal wear.
Yeah.
And I like the the tension between them when the two of them are discussing, Clara leaving and all that stuff. It was written well. It wasn't heavy-handed and it wasn't too expositional. I think it worked. And then his
I
whole
thought it was heavy-handed, but I thought it was appropriately heavy-handed because she was
Yeah.
so angry at him.
Yeah.
The end of last episode.
Yes.
This is a good last episode for Clara. I'm glad that she's decided to leave the
Yes.
doctor and
I
not
know.
traveling with him.
Agreed.
It's a very weird like tease, if you will. But maybe I'm in the minority, but I thought the jump from Kill the Moon to Mummy on the Orient Express, that drama tension between the Doctor and Clara, I felt like this is just weird to be like, let's go on the one last trip, instead of
Mhm.
having an episode to kind of digest what they were talking about.
I didn't get that. I didn't get that it was let's just go on a last trip, because their whole exchange was the awkwardness that they're going through. So it felt like, yes, we missed a little bit of something for him to come and get her. But so I thought it really, because we watched the ending of the last episode right before watching this. And so it really, I think, helped and made it flow better.
Yeah,
And
it really
you get
helped.
that feeling of there's still the the uncomfortableness of doing this.
The tension.
I
Okay,
just
this is just gonna be for fun, right? Okay, just for fun. This is our goodbye.
Just
Right,
need
we just
do
had to
the
watch
end.
the last ending a bit because I wanted to clarify that for myself, and I'm really glad we watched it. I'm really glad we watched it. Should watch it before this. It's just at 10 minutes or less.
Yeah, and I've done that in the past, and to me it just still seems sudden, because you go from that moment to, they seem happy before they start talking when they enter in
Yes.
the baggage car, and I remember that being jarring the first time I saw it.
I think we missed, or the writers missed, there was a whole big thing that we don't see where the two of them did talk.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
mean.
And
Like
they-
there should have been
you
that.
know, yeah, and so when they opened up the doors, they were kind of already in a settled state.
Yeah, and I get that.
But it is jarring. Oh my gosh, it's jarring. It's not Amy and Rory jarring, but it's still jarring.
Did we talk about Perkins in this? That was a fun introduction.
I
Yeah.
liked how he seemed like he might be a villain for a few moments.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that-
they really played that. Yeah.
That was great when he was like, "What are you doing? And what are you doing?" And it's like, I would, if I didn't know any better, that somebody just died, and you're looking at the thing that was keeping them alive. I'm like, well, it was just nice. A little, how should we call that? They're measuring each other up. I like that.
Yeah.
It was a good exchange. It was a good companion
Yeah,
test.
yeah.
I thought the two characters would be great together. I want to see Perkins come back.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
When they figure out that each other is okay, and he's like, Perkins, chief engineer, and he's the doctor, Nosy Parker.
Yeah.
That's a British term for busybody.
Nice.
Well, I just have a question, which kind of stood out. Why did Miss Pitt, the daughter/granddaughter, call the doctor out on lying? You couldn't have been there because it was destroyed thousands of years ago. Talking about the planet having.
I think she just was passing by and overheard him and realized he must have been lying, and seemed to be still in shock from her grandmother, and she's just like, "You're lying," like she's like a raw nerve who's just sensitive to anything anyone would say in the room.
What gets me is I get that, because Brian also said it was just to show that she's out of it and not handling things well, and not well, to show
Right.
later on.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
But then I also thought it's that plus to put the suspicion on the captain toward the doctor.
Right. That's right, because
I think it was to explain later why she was so high on the death list,
Right.
the psychological issues.
yeah, I agree. But in the moment too, it also cued the head of security to the doctor. Otherwise, he wouldn't
Yeah,
have even noticed.
I didn't say it was one or the other.
Yeah. I'm agreeing with you doubly.
I think it also works dramatically to point out that the doctor is a liar this early, because it comes back later with Maisie, and then also at the very end with Clara
Right.
and Danny and the doctor. Like, the doctor is a liar. We've talked about that lots of times on this podcast.
Mhm.
And now it's like really rubbed off on Clara by the end, where she's also now lying to stay
Right. Yeah.
in the TARDIS.
So it was a bit of foreshadowing to, which was also one of the main themes of the episode in and of itself.
Mhm.
So it might have been foretold.
Is that a joke?
That's the name of the monster.
The mummy.
Oh, duh. Sorry.
Thanks for joining, Josh.
Yeah. I'm here every week.
You weren't here last time.
I really like that the doctor, was talking to himself in a schizophrenic way.
Yeah.
It just worked
Yes.
really well. Well, since you said that, he did that so well. I think it was completely well done. And then he gets up and doesn't wake Clara. He has that hesitation.
Well,
So I think
before that, when he's doing that double talking to himself,
right?
There's one point where he sounds like Tom Baker. And in my head canon, I'm like, that's the previous doctor coming out and being like, let me talk this out with myself. And he can do that. And he can do that because the fourth doctor's in his brain somewhere.
And the cigarette case holding the jelly babies was fantastic.
I love how if you don't know what that is, it doesn't draw attention to itself. But if you know what it is, you're like, that's awesome.
Yes.
It's just very period appropriate.
About that moment when he goes to wake Clara and then doesn't, I thought it was a nice moment, but I wasn't really thinking too much about it, but I was kind of unclear about exactly why he didn't wake her. And then when he mentioned it earlier, like he was trying to respect her wishes. She doesn't want to get involved.
Right.
I like that element of that for that moment.
Yeah. Can't you just be on a train?
Well, if that's what you think that makes you better, sure. Because the doctor may have lied. He may say, no, this is the way to keep Clara with me, is to go off and go, oh, she's going to be really pissed going, no, I wanted to be with you.
Right.
I love the line that Clara says where she's like, I can't do this, not the way you do it.
Yeah.
I like that was great because it was like, no, I want Matt Smith back. I mean, I wasn't thinking that. But Clara was thinking that.
Right.
No, I'll be honest with you. Since we've started to rewatch these, which I didn't want to, I'm completely fascinated now by his doctor.
Yeah, same here.
Absolutely fascinated. It's like you are so horrible. It's like they wrote a doctor that you don't necessarily like.
He's totally. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's just he's like the quirky qualities of the doctor pushed into bad qualities that the other ones would joke about. Oh, was that rude? I should stop saying that. And this doctor would be like, well, that's rude. Well, get over it. And now it's like I'm basically watching how Capaldi plays this doctor, and I'm loving that.
Yes, he's one of those characters where they're almost too sensitive emotionally, so they cover it up with being too gruff.
Yep.
In a way, I feel like this doctor might be feeling the most guilty for his past lives. So he doesn't feel he deserves to be in a good mood, sort of thing. He's decided, no, this is who I am. But
I think honestly, it's just Moffat making a joke about his being Scottish.
That could be too. I'm sorry, is that rude? Well, he shouldn't be so sensitive.
Yeah, that's Scottish.
And then, Brian, what you talked about, even you mentioned that he has a horrible bedside manner. The captain brings that up later. So it's like, it's funny.
Yeah, it's like you watch him now and it's like, okay, you're like a child. You're like it. And then later it's like, okay, maybe you have Asperger's and you don't understand, social dynamics and you just blurt out things without realizing the consequences. And then other times it's like, no, you're just being a jerk. And yet Capaldi plays them all really, really well.
Yeah. He's aggressively charming.
I would go so far as to say charming.
Or he's aggressively charismatic.
Compelling.
Okay.
At least for me. It wasn't the first time. The first time it was too jarring. And it was like, I really want to like you, Peter Capaldi, but stop it. And now I'm just like, okay, I know what to expect going forward.
I'm also trying to figure out as we go through these, like where, I kind of lost love of Clara and their relationship and her presence on the show. And so it's interesting because they're both pretty dark, in these past couple episodes. Like she keeps wanting to leave, and he's also different than what we're used to. Like you said, more not a villain, but villainous in some aspects. And having both of them kind of be like unlikable, it makes it hard to root for them. I do think I've enjoyed these episodes more now that I have hindsight and more distance from the original watch. But I'm trying to figure out where those feelings came from before and where I feel now. Has been interesting going through these.
I still like Claire, but I am noticing that what I don't like about her now is her indecision. And nobody likes indecision. You can have a crisis of indecision, and that may be what an episode is about, but it's become her personality.
Yeah.
And to go back to what you were saying about Capaldi, like, that's not compelling.
Mm-hmm.
We can't root for someone who's not even rooting for one way or the other. Even if you don't agree with the decision someone has made, you're almost, if that's the case, you're morbidly curious to see if they do it or not. And you kind of get caught up in their want. But when she's got like two opposing wants and can't decide between the two of them, how do you root for that?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
You
I told
can't,
Frank that I probably wouldn't bring this up, that I really didn't want to bring this up, but I think I'm going to. In this episode, it's an abusive relationship.
Oh yeah.
She needs to get out. And that's when you put this into a real world perspective, this is where we need Arlene. It's very abusive, and she's going back and forth and can't make up her mind. Well, it's like, well, yeah, he's horrible, and that's how people react to an abusive relationship. She's addicted to something that isn't good for her.
Well, it's also thinking that it'll change, or you can make it change, or you can get used to it. Like thinking that it won't always feel like this if we just A, B, or C.
Yeah, and then every once in a while he'll do something to be like, oh, look, he's changing. I can see Clara reacting that way. Like at the end of this episode, she says, no, all right, let's go traveling. And he's like, immediately he's like thrilled, going, you mean it? Oh, this is a great news. And it's that moment of, I've changed. I won't ever treat you that way again. And it's like, I don't want that in my doctor.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't want to watch it at all.
To answer your question, Josh, you root for getting away from the addiction, from beating
the
addiction.
Right. And to see someone, it's like when you know someone who's in a bad relationship and know they need to get out, and you continue not to say anything because it's none of your business, but you just see the person basically complaining and describing about everything that's wrong with the relationship, but then they just stay.
Or double down and move it to another level, like from, dating to engagement, or something to living together, because that's the response by humans. Instead of just running away, it's like, well, I'm gonna commit even more. If only I do that one more thing, it'll be better.
That being said, it isn't, he may have been writing this character like, well, that's what people do, this is exactly what we're talking about, but it's not very compelling to watch it just go on and on and on. And you may have the writer or whatever may have a plan in mind where he sees the end, so he sees the complete arc, but we don't. We're the one who's got to sit here while it's happening.
Yeah, we have to watch it.
But I liked this episode because they're addressing it.
Oh yeah,
I like this episode between Clara and Maisie going, you can't just end a relationship on a slammed door. It's like, yes you can, and people do it all the time, except for those who can't.
Who can't.
Yeah, the way it is written is wonderful.
Yeah,
it's really well done. It's really well done, but it makes you like her less.
I just on this one
I disagree.
Yeah, well,
I actually sympathized with her and kind of liked her more in this episode because of it. But, and this is going to sound really contradictory, there's also a part of me that it would be okay for me if the doctor is like this, but not to his companion, right? He should bring the companion into his bubble. But everything else that he's doing, he's kind of right. I can't save you, but I need to get all of the information I can. And so it's like, but then he's turning to Clara going, well, what's your problem with me doing this? He should be like, with her, at least I would like a little bit of, I understand I'm coming off a bit harsh, but we really need to get the information. And I'm fine if he would do that with Clara, but that if he's doing it with everybody else, he's just being a jerk. I totally would be fine with that because it's fun to watch. But when he turns and does it on an emotional level to the other star of the show, it crosses the line for me. He's just as curt with her as he is with everybody else.
So it's his demeanor that you're more talking about.
Yeah. When he says to, oh, just lie to her. I don't care how you do it. Just get her up here.
Yeah, that's too much.
Yeah, it's like, it should be more, she's on the phone with just him. I wish it would have been something along the lines of like, even the words he says could have been said in a different tone, because he just blatantly, he's like, yes, it's tragic, get her up here. Whereas it could have been played more of, it's a tragic thing, but we need to get her up here, you know? And because his tone is extremely dismissive of Clara, along with everybody else. And
I didn't think Clara reacted well to that. She went along with him. He said to lie, I'm going to lie. And I think that's what really gets her later on, because she didn't have to. She could have said, the best shot you have is with the doctor.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's just sort of something about that he has the control over, where she used to be really self-sufficient, intelligent, able to do a lot of the stuff. And now it seems like she's definitely playing more second fiddle in this episode to him, going, you did it to me again. You made me do things that I didn't want to do. But she's giving over control to him. Whereas before, she would always usually, you know, banter back and forth. She might do what the doctor said because trusting him, but not just give into it like this. She just turned and lied to her. It's just sort of, see, okay, as we're talking about this and the whole ending, this is the episode that I think starts the downfall for Clara for me. It's the fall of the House of Oswald, I guess, because of what happens in the next episode and her role there. And it just seems at the end of this, it pivots, and it's just so sad, going, there you go, drinking again, doing something. It's like you just gave up on getting out of the situation. And to me, that's where I liked Clara, you know, with Matt a lot. And then I think from here forward is where I started, I'm not sure if anybody else did, if it was before this, going, okay, Clara, this was where you should have left. This was a good time. You spent a good time here. And then from here on is the one that just, she thinks she's the doctor. She goes too far and gets too big.
It's almost like she completely succumbs to the addiction.
Yeah.
Now, I think I agree with you a lot, Frank, that this is where like I started petering out. Not to spoil too much, do they address that in the next season between her and the doctor at all? Like that
I don't
it
think
is an
so.
addiction and bad for her? Okay.
They completely dump this aspect of the doctor.
Because I think that also is what kind of left, like she felt like she had several endings and kept coming back without a very good reason. And so that colors my perception of her whole run. But you know, as I was watching these, I'm like, well, it's fun. Like what happened? But it's still happening. So we'll get there.
The ending of this episode just is like where, okay, I stopped watching here. I'll have good memories of Clara.
You know, what you were saying earlier, Brian, about the doctor's curtness, it made me think of, there was a line earlier in the show that I thought was just a funny line to get the scene going, when he says, why you're smiling but you're sad. It's two things at the same time, two different things at the same time. Doesn't make sense to me. Like, I thought it was funny, but I think now I'm thinking it's actually setting up his attitude for the whole episode of what you were describing. Like, he doesn't get it. He's, you know, he doesn't understand how she feels. Yeah. Because it's basically, that's what that little bit of dialogue was saying. It's like, I see you're emotional and I don't know what it means.
Yeah, he's not playing with her. He's not toying with her.
Right.
He means it.
Yeah. So it's just interesting, though. I thought it was a little quip, but I think it's actually a setup for the rest of the episode.
And as a devil's advocate, I think he knows what he's doing, and he's getting Clara back. It's like, if he knows what's going to happen to the girl that he took, what's her name? I want to say Weber, and that's wrong. Chloe Weber.
Courtney,
the one, yeah. You know, he takes her and says, oh, she becomes president and all this stuff. It's like, you know that about one human, and you don't know this about the train or the foretold or anything. And it's like he knows what he's doing. And so this, it's like he waited long enough. He waited 3 weeks to see her, and he's going to get Clara back. He took her on this, knowing there was danger, knowing there was this thing to solve that he's been invited to many times, he says.
Just like
this is all manipulative.
Just like an abusive relationship. He's gaslighting her.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you, Frank. Like, especially in the past when we've seen his little asides at the end where he's like, beat that for a date and those other things. Like, he does know exactly how to manipulate Clara. Like, at least that's what I assume the writers are telling us with those small asides and little bit of competition that he feels between himself and Danny.
You know, don't want to spoil it. That's still way down the line. But everybody who's watched, the ending that they actually choose, it's like, seriously, with Clara? It's like, what
Yeah.
is your obsession?
That's it. Moffat became obsessed with Clara.
Yeah, that's why.
I think Moffat, in a completely just inside his head, not being affected by outer forces, would consider Clara the greatest companion. Before we move on, who wants a copy of the cover of Don't Stop Me Now? I loved that. That was
Oh
awesome.
yeah. I wonder if it's like that might be the thing. Like, what's Postmodern Jukebox? Is that the name of that band?
So that's what I thought at first, but that's actually a pop artist in the UK. Fox is her name.
Oh, she herself. She
So
wasn't.
we can actually listen to it?
Yeah, I think so. And the
cool.
music video is on the DVD.
Oh,
Cool.
But if you like that type of jazzy covers, like Josh mentioned, you should check out Postmodern Jukebox. They do not sponsor this episode, by the way. They're also, I've seen them live. They're great.
Yeah, I just thought that was great. And then the play on this is like, oh, this is old-fashioned music, you know?
Yeah,
It's clean.
like Britney Spears being classical music.
Yes, yes. On the iPod. In the kitchen, the countdown is starting. The chef sees the mummy approaching. 66 seconds later, he is dead. The doctor, Perkins, and Professor Morehouse start working on the case. Clara and Maisie are discussing living with difficult people. Maisie says that people can close a door on a relationship, but Clara is torn on the matter. The clock starts and the sarcophagus opens. It's filled with bubble wrap. But 66 seconds later, a train attendant is dead. The doctor has realized that the passengers are all experts in biology, physics, mythology, the perfect team to investigate the mummy. Someone has organized this entire trip. It's Gus, the train's computer system. Gus explains that he has summoned them all to capture the mummy, whose appearance is tied to a scroll that Gus had arranged to be displayed on the train. The clock starts, Morehouse sees it, and starts describing the mummy before he dies.
So what we've been talking about, this is a great example of the doctor knowing Morehouse is dead, but extracting the information from him. And I felt they could have sort of spotlighted that. It took their time with that a little more. And maybe I get
more
that
than
Clara,
66 seconds? Yeah.
but I mean, like, what was he doing in that moment? That could have been dissected. But the fact that Clara is separated from him, she doesn't get to see what he's doing. So I'm like, how could we have conveyed that to her? Because the lines are great. He's saying, you're gonna die. Yeah, he's like, you're gonna die. I thought that was implied. and then he goes on to say, even the smallest detail can save the next one. The next one, you mean you can't save me? Well, that is implied, isn't it? Yes, this is probably the end for you, but make it count. So I like how it starts off in one way and then it turns it around where he's actually trying to save everybody else.
It's like the vicious way of saying the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. You know, it's like, if you get past the tactics, he's right.
Yeah.
I did like Morehouse. I thought that was a good character. I liked the way that they talked beforehand with the jelly babies. And
so good.
What was the most, interesting thing about The Foretold is that you could see, you've been here to experience it.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great line. And also Morehouse just starting to describe it without being asked. It was great. And it's like, crap. But I really liked the doctor in this not taking responsibility for everybody's life at this point. He's doing what he can to just save as many as he can. But for those he can't, there's nothing he can do. He's not going to be, and the doctor's like, no, I can't. That's not possible. And so he knows some people are going to die. I can't stop everybody from dying because I don't know what's going on. So in some way that's, but I think he's not taking the responsibility for not saving those people he cannot save. Yeah. I think that was a great, healthy.
I disagree though in that he's not wasting his time on the people he can't save so that he can save more people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like, tell me all the information I need to know now so that we can stop this thing quicker.
Yeah, this scene is what I wanted from Into the Dalek when he sort of just sacrifices the other soldiers.
Yeah.
And I know it's sort of the same, but then this one I'm more okay with.
So you've already reached to that point, but this is just explaining it or done it better because you had that other information. If you would have started now, you still, I think, may have been upset. But you're not trying enough.
But when he says, but make it count, I think that's what really cements it for me. Where he didn't do that into the Dalek. Into the Dalek.
Well, even at the end, not to jump ahead again, but Clara says you saved them all or you saved everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
he didn't.
And he didn't. But I think to Frank's point, like he's only taking the responsibility for those that he actually could have saved. So I think that reinforces what Frank was saying.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I like the gag, if you want to call it, or the bit where the sarcophagus opened because that was the trap, not where which I mean, it's exact.
Right.
It played out. They wanted us to think, oh no, he's coming out of it. We all fell into it.
Oh, yeah.
And they called bubble wrap now.
And it was red, not green.
Run.
I like that switch. I got a kick out of that.
I'm surprised you didn't mention the red blinking lights. It's like, no, there's bubble wrap with red blinking lights. It's usually like something's going to explode kind of idea.
The joke was the
It's
bubble wrap, right, to connect to
Right.
older classic Who. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also the sarcophagus, because that also goes back to a very
Pyramids.
famous fourth Doctor.
Yeah,
the
Pyramids
same
of
Doctor.
Mars.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't catch
So
that.
it's so
Pick up on that.
you know, oh, I'm gonna have a spacey wacy sarcophagus. I could see Moffat being that way. Did you figure out how Gus got his name?
No.
Sarcophagus.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
and Gus reminded me of the host on Voyage of the Damned to connect
Yes!
it to that. Okay,
Yeah,
good. I'm
Max
not the only one.
Capricorn.
Max.
Yeah.
Max Capricorn, yeah. And it's so much so that it always takes me out.
Yeah.
That's where it takes me out. His voice is, because he's also saying it the same way. And I was going to ask you, Eugene, is it the same actor?
It's not. I looked it up too. I was like, what is
Yeah.
going on here?
who can we just talk real quick? Who is that actor? Because he sounded extremely familiar, or is it just he's got a?
He's a British
He's not anyone
comedian. Not that I don't think we would know. John Sessions is his name, and he was a regular on the Whose Line Is It Anyway in the UK.
Oh, okay.
I don't need to tear apart like logic stuff in this one. Like that's not the point of it.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that one of the attendants is murdered by the mummy, but then the rest of the attendants that were there were holograms that disappear. So much so that even the captain engineer is like, "Oh, he was my best attendant." Like that was just a hologram. So it's just I don't have to pick them apart, but that was one that was like, really? You just killed the one guy who was a human, I guess. Maybe the mummy doesn't know. Anyways, weird one, but not really affecting the story. Just like, I know you got to kill somebody who's not important, and you chose this person.
Yeah. And then when all those holograms disappeared, you got a better look at the other people. That like one guy looked like Einstein. I think
Mhm.
someone else looked like Tesla, and they weren't like they were, for the most brilliant minds in the universe, they were awfully silent.
Thank
And
you.
I
Totally agree.
now I do realize, well, yeah, then you'd have to pay them, pay the actors to talk, and the budget, the effects in the show are good, so that's probably where the budget went. But to see some, and I understand it can't be Albert Einstein because this takes place, in the distant future. But to have I found it distracting, even though it was kind of a fun gimmick.
Well, it's also interesting that this wasn't the first one. So all the really smart people, they've already gone through and died. These are like
The less
however-
eccentric
yes,
people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good point. Good point.
It's
Maybe they just put
it is
Party
like me.
noises over it of people talking.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be them, so you just get a generic soundbite.
I do like this scene though, because it shows me the Doctor, or it is more familiar with the Doctor that I like,
Right.
where he is working to solve a mystery with everything that he has around him, and he is trying to save as many people as he can, even though he can't save everybody. So this is just a part of the Doctor that I feel like I have missed until I get glimpses of it through this season, but this one, it was a nice scene.
And the also malfunction of the screwdriver. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is not going to be a fix-all to everything. We're getting rid of the screwdriver right now.
But I did find it interesting, and I only caught it on this last one, when he tries to use the screwdriver on the door to get Clara out, and it doesn't work, and he's like, oh, pesky screwdriver. When the sarcophagus opens, that's when Clara says, it worked, it just didn't work on the door.
Yeah.
I thought that was
Mhm.
an interesting line to throw in. It's working, just not on the door that Gus controls.
Right. Is this now? I mean, I've seen Murder on the Orient Express years ago, and this, that, and the other. But is this close to the plot of that? Besides just the the atmosphere?
No,
No,
I think it's
just
just
the
a
name.
Not really.
Yeah.
it's just a setting, like a train, right? Yeah.
Right.
The Doctor wants to know how the Foretold chooses its victims. He discovers it's picking off the weakest, and the captain is next. He also tells them what is happening before he dies. Off on a rant, the Doctor realizes this is technology that drains energy to keep the mummy alive. The 66 seconds is the time it takes to set up the process. He believes that Maisie is next. Maisie sees the mummy, but the doctor doesn't start the clock. The doctor takes all of Maisie's grief and transfers it to him. Start the clock. The doctor sees the mummy. It has markings that match the scroll, but it's not a scroll. It's a flag, and the mummy is a soldier from a long-forgotten war. Realizing that the soldier is doing his job, the doctor surrenders. The clock reaches 0, the doctor is still alive, and the mummy passes away.
That's a lot. And I don't understand why Gus did not want Clara and the doctor talking and killed all of the people in the kitchen, but then lets Clara and Maisie out of the
Well,
compartment.
Gus agreed that it was a good plan. Like the doctor has this line where he's like, even Gus agrees with me. So then that was my clue to be like, oh, that's why Gus is gonna let them go, because even Gus is so I'm guessing what happened is the doctor was like ran the plan by Gus. Hey Gus, I'm gonna bring Maisie into this car because we think she's the next one to go and we need to study it. You know, we need to study what's going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, but I had the same question, Frank, until the second watch, and then I caught that.
And I was thinking it was because the doctor and Clara are focusing more on who's behind it and why are they doing it rather than the foretold. I was like, stop it, that's not the point, and you have to stay on track. Didn't mean to make that joke, sorry.
Right, that's the one dangling participle for me is that just that. Why did this AI happen to take this upon himself as a personal mission?
Well, it's kind of like Aliens, where they want to take a sort of killing machine and then weaponize it. Or not a killing machine, but a killing entity and then weaponize it. So Gus is programmed by a corporation that wants to militarize the mummy, the Foretold. And so they're reverse engineering how the Foretold is by bringing all the scientists on this train to figure that out. And then once that's done, then everybody dies because the corporation has the information.
Did they say anything like that, or are you just coming up with this?
They did say that they want to re-engineer it. Or
reverse engineer
it. So they want to make ghost killers that they can control.
Okay.
Yeah. Then from there, I did my fan fiction.
Yeah, no, I missed that element.
Why wasn't there, of any of the episodes, why wasn't there a Missy cameo at the end of this episode?
Yeah, it would have been perfect. Yeah, totally.
Perfect.
But that's it. It seems like this was leading to something bigger.
Right.
Because they are following up from the Big Bang. And I'm not sure if they referenced it in anything else about the Orient Express. But then the way that they're putting in Missy this season, it seems like this should be something that's continued. And it never was. It doesn't affect my opinion of this episode, but it's felt like it's something else that they dropped. They started and dropped.
Absolutely.
This could have been something that they continued as a big overall search.
Yeah. Quick question to back up a little bit. So when the doctor sees the uniform markings on the mummy underneath the bandages, were they in red or something? Because I didn't see anything, but I'm colorblind a bit. So
it was like brown on brown, so it was hard to see sometimes.
It was hard to see.
Yeah,
it was just me. All right. Because part of me was just like, where's he drawing this conclusion? But then I figured I listened more and got it. Well, what I like about, what would you call it? The explanation is that there were hints at it all along. Everything he said when he realized what was going on, to the fact to I surrender, like they keep mentioning the password, or what did they call it? Did they call it a password?
Or a riddle. Yeah. Something that would stop
whatever
them.
it may, like it was, so throughout the episode you're wondering, what is the password, what is the message, and then they refer to the scroll. So all the things were there, and it all just gelled together in those moments, and it made sense. And then when the mummy saluted, I felt it a very, like I said before, a very satisfying conclusion.
I didn't like the salute.
I didn't like the salute either.
Just because Morehouse had mentioned that this isn't from Earth.
Yeah, but I mean, but half of the human beings are not from Earth. I mean, the Who universe is either crazy not human or of Earth. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
or Terran or whatever you want to call it. Like it's the universal symbol of salute. I mean, they have all their aliens salute and stuff like that. It's not like on this planet they salute like this or something. Like
But they don't. I mean, in a lot of the other episodes, a good man goes to war. There's not really a salute.
Well, not everyone, but I'm
No,
sure.
no, but I mean, that's what it's like. That was such a Earth thing for me to do, and it's like, and just this whole relationship with soldiers, and then it just seemed like he should have said, "Crap, it's another one of them," and he won't stop. It's just like he should hate this soldier as much as he hates all the other soldiers.
That is inconsistent.
They are really like the ending to this is very similar to Caretaker, right? Where some military tactic or aspect must be ascertained by the Doctor to defeat the enemy.
Yeah.
Good point.
And so, yeah, what is it Moffat? Like, what is his problem with soldiers this year? Or did he just...
I think so.
This, I know you've said it before, but where was this in like relation to what was the war going on at this time? The Gulf War or the
Afghan?
Afghan.
No, it was Iraq.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and Afghanistan, but Iraq was the biggie that everybody was.
And the British were involved with both of those. Like they were part of that coalition, right? Bush. Yeah.
They were the second largest contingency.
Yeah, I mean, putting them kind of closer together with the binge and looking back now with like all the, I mean, Danny Pink's character and even now this mummy on a train is somehow a soldier. There's definitely something's on somebody's mind in that writer's room.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say, Josh, I do agree with you in that the Doctor is the only one who could solve it within the 60 seconds so he doesn't die kind of thing. And it's like, and putting that all together, it was hard to see the things on the mummy, the
writings,
symbols on the mummy.
Yeah.
And it's just getting that together as being a flag because that's what he's saying. That's what people will die for, something they believe in like that. Yeah. That's what they're doing. So I did like that he put it together. It did seem a little quick. It's like there's not any kind of clue that they gave before this, so we couldn't figure it out. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, of course. So it was nice how it was done.
It was fun that he figured it out so fast and drew those leaps of logic. Like it's not a scroll, it's a flag, like so quickly. But they were so well connected, I didn't care.
Right.
Best line of the episodes during this too, when he finally sees the mummy and he's going towards the mummy and he's like, "Hello, I'm the Doctor. I'll be your victim tonight. Yeah. Are you my mummy?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, called back all the way to the empty child.
But to keep that a little before this, when the mummy was coming and going through the Doctor and the hand was going through the head, it was just a great composite shot. It was just merged well together. I loved it.
Yeah, the mummy looks good. All the effects are really decent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a good looking show. I think they probably put a lot of effort into it because it could have come across extremely cheesy.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone had a joke about a vampire, like that it's a bit of a vampire. I guess the joke there is, the universal monsters, the mummy, the vampire.
And then we got the werewolf in Tooth and Claw.
Right.
So now we just need a Frankenstein and what else? Invisible Man.
Gus thanks them for their work and begins to vent the cabin. The Doctor begins to work on the mummy's transport device, and the train explodes. Clara wakes up and the Doctor tells her he got everyone off in the Tardis. Gus blew up the train rather than reveal who was responsible. Danny calls Clara, who tells him her traveling is over. But then she says to the Doctor that Danny is fine with her continuing. The Doctor is very happy, and off they go.
We didn't mention Perkins. Is that his name?
Yeah, Perkins is invited. I thought that was nice.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really cool where he's helping the Doctor fix or tinker with the TARDIS.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes, "Yeah, you should get someone in here. And a job like this takes forever."
Mm-hmm.
And the Doctor replies with, "Really? Well, I suppose whoever I did get in might be easier to have them stay on board for a while. I don't suppose you'd know of anyone." And then he's just, "No, sorry, Doctor, but I don't think I do. That job could change a man. Yes, it does. Frequently." It's just it's so good.
The Frank
so
would
good.
Respond. At least 13 times.
It's also a good insight into this Doctor because he doesn't want to be alone. Because at this point, he's thinking Clara's leaving.
Right.
So it's like, oh, I'm going to be alone. I don't want to be alone.
I wrote in my notes, Clara's giving up the Doctor. And then my next note, Clara's not giving up the Doctor.
I mean, think about what that would have been. Clara goes off with Danny, and then we get Perkins for the rest of the season. I'm like,
it would have been great.
It could have been, man.
Yeah.
we all know the first rule with the doctor lies. Now, if you take it that he knew what was going to happen in trying to get Clara back, did he save everybody or not?
That'd be funny if it didn't.
Well, I mean, he says,
Saved
oh no, this is
everybody
just my cover
when?
story, which maybe that's when he's telling the truth.
Oh, you mean at the end? You mean
At
like,
the end.
is he
He
just
saved
saying
Clara,
that
he was
he's
trying to do that where it's only supposed to get the mummy to transport. And so he's trying to broaden it. Maybe he only did it for 2 people. And Clara wouldn't stay with
Clara,
him.
but Clara
Oh,
says
you
that,
think that everyone blew up on the train and he didn't actually drop them off at that?
Just asking the
Factory
question, because
looking-
what is he doing with the sand and poking
If the
Oh.
doctor lies, that's a big possibility.
I mean,
don't
in the
think-
story by itself, it's like I would trust the doctor. But
Yeah.
looking at the whole arc of what they did with Clara,
It's a possibility.
I think Perkins would have said something. I think he saved everybody.
there is also that moment where Claire's like, "Oh my God! So it was just an act. You were not being heartless."
Yeah.
And his response says, "Would that make it easier?"
Yes,
Mm,
I like
right.
that line too. Yeah.
Yeah, he really sticks to his guns. That he is who he is. Doesn't apologize for it.
Like this is one of those the doctor self-aware moments, and it's Auburn mentioned something like not in this podcast. So Auburn, if you want to say it after I say it for the listener's sake and for the podcast sake, but Aubrey, you mentioned to me that like talking about like Clara feeling like traveling with the doctor is an addiction. It would have been nice for the doctor at some point, maybe not this episode, but later on, when after she makes the decision to continue traveling with him, to be like, you know what, like traveling with me is an addiction and you shouldn't do it anymore, and like have the doctor be the one that's like enough is enough.
Do you think was Clara a liar before this episode, or is this where she has committed to the lie to both of the men in her life that she can do both?
She's been doing that for a while.
But this is, I mean, she hasn't been truthful, or has she, with Danny about what she's been doing with the doctor? I think pretty
Recently,
early on, yeah.
Recently she had, but she was like, it was implied, especially in that one episode where there was big dating montages and stuff like that, where it was like, this has been going on for a while. I think it was the caretaker, if not the one before the caretaker. So she had been lying to both of them for a while.
Yeah. But this is where it's, now she's lying to the doctor, or has she been?
She was, yes, because she was lying to him that she wasn't dating him, Danny.
Okay.
And now she's just lying to herself.
There it is. Yeah, maybe that's it.
And that's very frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
I did like the way that they wrote it, where Clara said the word addiction. That's all she said, because it was implied to both of them, or it could be referred to both of the double speak. I like it. That's because, do you like doing this? Is this what you do all the time? Because it's an addiction. He goes, I don't know if you can't tell if it's addiction until you try to quit.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
So it's like it worked for both of them. Done really well. That was great writing.
You can leave whenever you want. I want you. It's real. You can leave whenever you want. I'd like it if you stayed, and I'd be upset. But it's your decision. I don't want to upset anyone. People, because that's an addiction that a lot of people have, is I can't have anyone upset with me. You know, I think so. There's a lot of things that people can relate to. That's why people love this show so much.
Going to the cast real quick. We have Frank Skinner as Perkins. He's an English comedian, was appointed member of the Order of the British Empire in 2003 for services to entertainment.
Does that mean he's a sir?
No, he can just put MBE after the end of his name. John Barrowman does it.
He just got a high award then, right?
Yeah, it's an honor.
Okay. He considers himself a diehard Who fan, and he was previously in the Five-ish Doctors reboot, but I don't know where. Jamie Hill plays the Foretold. He was one of the Silents in season 6 and this season, and he will appear again as creatures in future seasons. David Bomber plays Captain Quell. The last thing I saw him in was Enola Holmes, where he played Sir Wimbrel. He was in The Bourne Identity, Gangs of New York, and he played Hitler in Valkyrie with Tom Cruise.
Which character is he on here? Oh, he was
the captain, the security captain. Yeah.
He had a nice arc on this episode.
Yeah.
We didn't mention it, but he had a really good arc. And his death, like where the professor, ended trying to plead for his life, the captain really did a good job at, he started scared, but then really brought it back together and gave a lot of good information.
I think what brought it for me was when he goes, "Thank you, doctor," as he's about to die, for waking me up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We mentioned John Sessions as the voice of Gus. He was in Whose Line Is It Anyway, the UK version. He was Joseph Tompley in Belfast, which is one of Kenneth Branagh's best films, I think. He was Lord John Russell in Victoria with Jenna Louise Coleman. And he sadly passed away in 2020 of a heart attack. He was 67.
Mm.
Daisy Beaumont plays Maisie Pitt. She played Nina in The World Is Not Enough and a cigarette girl in Shanghai Nights. Janet Henfrey is Mrs. Pitt. She was Celeste in Ever After, and then she was in the movie, the earlier movie, not the Russell one with Russell Crowe, Les Miserables. She played Galot, and there's an MME Galot. Is that Madame?
Mademoiselle.
Okay.
So she wasn't married.
She was also in Classic Who in The Curse of Fenric with the Seventh Doctor.
Wow.
We mentioned Foxes. Her real name or her birth name was Louisa Rose Allen. She's a singer, a pop singer, or she plays the singer on the Orient Express, and she is a pop singer in real life. She is the one that covers Queen's Don't Stop Me Now. And in the behind the scenes, you see her take a tour of the Tardis console set, and she was taking photos. So she was a very big fan and happy to be there.
That's cool. I wonder if that character was a hologram.
We don't see her again.
That's true.
I think I also read that this is the first time that the BBC has issued a formal music video for a song featured in Doctor Who and not like just an extra on the DVD. So this was available for people to stream, and then Fox has posted it on her social media, I believe, as well. And then we have Chris Villers, who plays Professor Morehouse. He is Sir Kay in First Night, Rear Admiral Woodard in The Crown. He's also been in Classic Who in The King's Demons with the Fifth Doctor. So this episode has a lot of Classic Who connections, sort of, and a lot of fans being brought back with, especially with Perkins, and Fox is just showing how much of a fan of the show that they are.
This episode was almost 10 years ago.
Funny, huh?
No, it's not funny at all.
I'm laughing. Kelsey's laughing.
It was yesterday for me.
This episode also is the first time since the 1996 TV movie that the Doctor has offered anyone a jelly baby on screen.
Oh, that's fun.
Even though they were referenced before with Saxon in Sound of Drums, I think he talked about or offered him to somebody else. And I think the 11th Doctor's Ganger did that in Almost People.
I think you're right.
But this is the first time since the TV movie that the Doctor, as the main character of the Doctor, has done it. So, Mummy on the Orient Express. Who is this episode good for? Or more specifically, this episode is good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
I like this episode. I think it's got some great writing. I think it's a good enough standalone, but it has stuff that go, oh, I want to know more about it, about the relationship and things. So I would say new. I would say, yeah, I could see myself either introducing or having it. If it's just on and nobody's ever watched Doctor Who, yeah, this would be a good one to show.
I'm going to say casual viewer. It's standalone. Casual viewer.
I say new. I think Frank, for the same reasons Frank said, I think it's a good bottle show. And all the things that we kind of complained about Clara's character arc, a new person wouldn't even be aware of. And it shows a good balance of what Doctor Who is. It's kind of cheesy, but it's also super duper cool, and it's got all the right elements. And I think how everything was revealed so thoroughly and quickly at the end was great, because I couldn't remember what the answer was. So it happened so late that I never had a chance to even maybe figure some of it out. So it was this, and then it was very clear and thorough, and I was like, that's really cool. Like at the end, I was very satisfied.
For me, I'm going to say fan, because as a fan, I enjoyed rewatching this. So I want to encourage other fans out there listening to go back and watch this episode, because I think there's some interesting elements in it that were fun to watch.
I think we're gonna agree with Brian and go with casual. I do hear everything that you all are saying about a new viewer, and I think yeah, that could definitely, I could see it. But I would not personally start someone with this episode, so I'm gonna say casual. But I do think it has aged better than what I remember the first time through it. So that's good. It is an enjoyable show to watch.
Yeah, for me, this is not one I've revisited since it first broadcast. So that says how much I think of this episode. But rewatching it this week, I definitely felt like this is good for a new viewer. And I think for me, it's because that the doctor that is in this episode is the doctor that I had been missing in previous episodes. So a new viewer will get what I like about the doctor in this episode and won't get the weird regeneration newness of the 12th Doctor earlier in this season. Yeah, this is the first time I've seen this episode in years, so that doesn't mean it's not good for a new viewer, so that's why I'll put it into a new viewer. So this will be the unintentional pun at the end. That wraps up Mummy on the Orient Express. Thanks for listening, stay safe, and we'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
Additional music is by Damiel Paggio.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn, and you can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher.
Or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, subscribe to us on Amazon Music,
And then ask your Amazon device to play your podcast subscriptions.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest-running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell, Sidney Newman,
Verity Lambert, Ron Grainer,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
Mifflin podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is suddenly an office podcast.
No, actually, I have strong opinions. You guys have the Brother laser printer in your home?
No.
Okay, never mind.
Mm-mm.
Yep.
That ends this week's episode.
Anywho, we're not
That's
here
our-
to talk about me.
Anywho's our sister podcast.
No.
Just kidding.
We just
That would've
randomly
been
pick
good.
one and